Hey everyone, so I will be focusing on location managing for my presentation right now. And the reason I picked this is because since location managing has always been something that has sort of intrigued me in a way, but I also haven't really learned a whole lot about it. Other than my pre-production class that I took with Martha McGee, I don't really know a whole lot, and we really didn't really dive into the whole like intense part of what the job entails, but we did briefly talk about it, and it always sort of sparked an interest with me. So I sort of dove into that with this presentation, and essentially, what it is someone who, it's definitely a pre-production job, and their job is to find ideal locations to film the shoot. So obviously you have to read the script and figure out, oh, what is the location like? What's the setting like? Are we inside, outside, etc. Another part of the job is you have to sort of, negotiate deals and like talk to people a lot, and like business owners, homeowners, private property owners, all of that. You really have to dig in deep to make sure it's okay to shoot there, because a lot of the times it really comes down to a lot of legal stuff, and you have to, sign paperwork and pay a bunch of fees in order to shoot at certain locations. Sometimes, though, if you know somebody and it is a good, relationship, then a lot of the times, typically, you're able to get a really good price or even shoot at a certain place for free, depending on what you're doing, what the project is. Every project's different. But also, a huge part of the job is managing the location for the shoot. So what you have to essentially do is sort of be the liaison between the film crew and the cast, and then the owners of the certain location and the people of the community and whatnot. So communication is a huge key in being a location manager. So I picked this because the job does entail a lot of traveling, a lot of exploring and whatnot. Traveling has been something that I've been doing my whole life. My mom used to work for the airlines, and I actually just got a job with American Airlines as a flight attendant, and I'm very excited to start that right after I graduate in June. But so this was kind of a fun thing to research and whatnot. But we asked the question, how can our chosen topic be implemented and utilized, and what is the potential societal/cultural impact? I think that when it comes to location, it like something that's super important is to obviously, communicate with the community, but also to research like that certain community beforehand, before the shoot and whatnot. A lot of times in international films, when you're filming abroad, you may not, if you're not too familiar with the area, it's super important to research what the area is about, like who lives there, like what is their culture like, what do the people, what like how do they live? Because as a filmmaker, you don't want to ever step on anybody's toes, or you don't ever want to have to be in a situation where you might be offending someone, or there might be a miscommunication where they can completely like get out and your whole shoot's ruined, and then you have to find another place to shoot your film at. So there's a lot of factors that go into location managing, and being able to talk to those people and have a comfortable relationship with them, so you're not stepping on anybody's toes, is very important. In some locations, you may have a film that is considered somewhere that is like more remote, and typically in like more remote places, whether it's domestic or international, sometimes, that's like news for people, like, you're walking down the street and all of a sudden there's a film being shot in your hometown or whatnot. That's something that, as a location manager, you should absolutely be, your number one priority is making sure that it is okay with the community, because you never know who these people are, what they believe in. You never want to offend anyone, and not many people understand what it's like to make a film unless you went to film school. And part of that is knowing how to not offend someone, because some people may not ever experience like this sort of technology that might be brought in during a film shoot, or what the project consists of, like what the movie's about. Is it something like religious affiliated? Is it a story about something that might be like a more touching like subject, where you don't want to have to ever, like, you never want to, like, offend anybody in that situation because they represent whatever that town, that business, wherever that may be. And part of that is to make sure you're all on the same terms when it comes to that. So after doing some research, there I found this one article about this like location like gone wrong, like this shoot gone wrong in LA, which is ironic because that's like the film and TV capital of the country, essentially the world. And basically what had happened, the location manager had worked out everything with the city, and they wanted to film in front of this cafe, and basically the private property owner of that specific location somehow, some way, did not get informed and thought he was supposed to get paid off, and essentially the private property owner was upset that he wasn't getting paid, and it was just the city that was getting paid to use that public place or that public sidewalk and street in front of his private property. So he thought it was a good idea to disrupt the shoot and whatnot and to cause a scene, which can be completely annoying when shooting a film because it's a project, it's something you work hard on, you plan and extensively plan in. And it's something that clearly ruined that specific scene of that specific project, but that's something you never ever have to want to deal with. And something that location manager could have done was maybe talk to the private property owner, did a little bit more research on who are the people who live at this certain building, who owns it, who is going to be essentially affected by this when and where we shoot this specific scene or movie, etc. So how the potential societal and cultural impact, and actually going back to throughout my whole course at DePaul, I've taken a lot of PAX classes and a lot of religious classes, specifically dealing with the Muslim culture and whatnot. And that is a completely different world, Eastern world versus Western world. And you would it's important to never, to ever intervene on anything that may be completely offensive and completely wrong in one culture's eyes that could be completely okay in our eyes, because we live in different worlds. The Eastern world was much more developed at an earlier stage than Western culture was, so it is very high key to make sure that everything, when you are location scouting, to know completely what you are doing and who you are dealing with. And not being able to do that then location managing is not for you. You have to be able to communicate with people and to do it in a way that's not rude or oh, well, we're a film set, we're going to be big and famous and this movie's going to hit theaters. No, you want to be respectful to the community and to the people living within that community. And typically it usually works out, obviously, because of the many films that have been made. But, something can always go wrong when it comes to locations. I mean, other than just dealing with the community, you have to deal with the weather. I mean, think of Lost in La Mancha, which is still in production probably. And when they first started shooting back in the early 2000s, I think it was the end of the first week of their film, a huge rainstorm came and completely flooded the location that they were shooting at, and completely ruined, one of the reasons that ruined the entire project. And stuff like that you have to be wary of. You have to be aware of where you're at, what the weather's like, sunset, the sun sets at different places. I mean, the sun sets obviously the same time all the time, but certain locations, it gets darker earlier, or it gets lighter earlier, you know what I mean? So it's very important to know these things before going into a certain location. You have to research everything, weather, location, time. You have to know everything. So this was a very interesting present role to experiment and to explore. And it's really important that, like I said, that communication with the community, knowing when and where. Obviously you can't plan weather, but it is something to be very, very aware of, and you have to be prepared for, is there going to be a random snowstorm in the middle of April? Is there going to be a thunderstorm for a week? You know, you can't really plan that, but it's something to always be prepared for and always have a backup location, you know, no matter what. Even if you're sure that this is the location, knowing that you have a backup and you're like, all right, this isn't our first choice, but we can go here and we can hash this out and get it done. That's something that's really important. So thank you for listening to my presentation. If you have any questions regarding location managing, feel free to reach out, comment, and whatnot. Have a good one.